Hello, my name is Mike, and I'm not working on a bike. Not today, because, well, I'm kind of up in the air on my 82 Ford Granada that I affectionately call the Rusty Granny. No, it's not just a bad pun, it's literal and figurative. Literally up in the air because I'm getting ready to work on the transmission, and figuratively because, well, for a long time I wasn't sure what to do with it. Because you see, I ran it low on fluid and I damaged the transmission so it slips really bad. Didn't notice it much when it had the 6-cylinder engine in it still, but now that we've got the 351 Windsor in it, well, it slips like a bad dog. So I contemplated pulling the C5 out and going through it and rebuilding it, which I could have done, or just putting a cheap used C5 in it, which I could also have done. But see, in addition to needing a transmission, well, we replaced the rear end because it was a really high rear end gear. Now it's got a really lower, well, not really low, but it's 308, it's lower. And so when this thing goes down the road at 55 miles an hour, I'm revving to like $3,000, which is not really very good for getting on the highway. So I wanted to put in an AOD, a Ford Automatic Overdrive Transmission. And the correct one that would work for this car would have to be one built during the 1980s. By the 1990s, they went to all electronic controls, and it's only suitable for a car that has a computer controlling the engine, an ECM. This car does not. It needs a transmission that has either a vacuum modulator or a throttle cable. And that's the type of AOD I needed, and that's the one that's the hardest to find, even though it was the most common transmission Ford used at the time. Seems it's a pretty popular transmission for people in their custom cars and their hot rods and stuff that don't have computers in them. So every time I answer an ad that had one of those AODs at a reasonable price, somebody had already purchased it. They go like that. I got lucky the other day, got a hold of a guy, had an engine and a trans. He had advertised as a 90s engine and trans. So at first I thought it wasn't the right one, but after a little correspondence, we realized it was the correct transmission that I was looking for, and he agreed to separate the engine and transmission and sell me just the transmission for a very reasonable price, $400. Don't know if it's any good. It may need rebuilding, but at least I have something to work with. So in this episode, we're going to do some stuff. Here's what I'm up against. So here's some of what I'm up against. The bell housing is going to be the same. That's not an issue. Shift linkage. Went through a lot of trouble to make this shift linkage work. And the way that it's set up, here's the lever up here. It pulls forward, it goes back to go into park. And on the AOD, this arm is down here, and it goes forward to go into park. So I've got to somehow flip the AOD arm up to the top. I shouldn't have too much trouble with the throttle cable, because, well, I can use this same arm on the new transmission. Now the AOD is a longer distance from the bell housing to the mounts by about 2 inches, according to my incredibly imprecise preliminary measurements. Now when I put this transmission in, I changed this, put this in, this is the one that came with the car. I changed the cross member to allow for a dual exhaust. And this cross member, I had to move this spacer from this end to this end. Now I'm going to have them go the other way. Yeah, you never know. But that should line up my rear mount okay. My transmission cooler lines, they go in a little differently on the AOD. What I'll probably just do is cut them here and just put a short piece of hose to the transmission. That's the easiest way around instead of trying to bend tubes. And then, of course, our drive shaft length is going to be different. So even though the mount is slightly further back on the AOD, the overall length is slightly shorter, which means I'm going to need a longer drive shaft. Now the local wrecking yard said he's got a whole bunch of drive shafts that I can choose from, so I will take him up on that. Here's the little beauty that's going in the car. And you can see here's my shift control lever. It's down on the bottom instead of up on the top like the C5. So I'm going to try and get a lever. There's one online that you can get, and it has an adjustable arm. You can put it any different dimension. This is my throttle lever, throttle cable lever, but due to the way it's oriented, I'll probably take it off and use the one that's on there I just showed you. This is my neutral safety switch. It's a different plug and a different switch than the one that's on the car, but that's easy enough. You've got one set of wires for your neutral and park locations, so it will crank. And then the other one is for your other pair is for your backup lights. So that's easy. You can see the transmission cooler lines. They go straight into the side, whereas on the C5, one goes this way and the other one goes this way. So we'll just put some hose nipples on there and just do that the easy way. But I anticipate it should go fairly smoothly. Oh, sounds like famous last words. Kind of the most importantest of all things ever on these AOD transmissions is to make sure that your throttle control cable is adjusted exactly right. It's got to move a very specific distance based on your throttle position. If there's not enough pull on this throttle valve, then your transmission doesn't have enough line pressure, your clutches will slip, and you will fry your transmission. Ask me how I know. Yep, I had an 87 Mercury Cougar. Throttle cable broke. I didn't know any better. I kept on driving, fried that tranny, ended up having to completely rebuild it. So I know now. I know much better. So we're going to make sure this is exactly synced to the carburetor so that it will not slip and fry clutches. So that's what I'm up against. So stick around.
Somewhere in a dusty, dirty back alley in western Arizona, not far from historic Route 66, is an old fart trying to cram a square peg into a round hole. He'll work on anything, just as long as it's got at least 2 cool wheels.
Alright, I'm going to put a little flare on the ends of these cut-off lines, so that way when I put a piece of hose on here, it's got a little wider area. It will help hold the hose in place. That way if the hose clamps, lose their tension over time, it won't just slide right off and it just, drip instead of shooting fluid everywhere. It's a pretty easy way to make sure the hose stays on. I can't put like a barb in the end, but that's the next best thing right there, and you can see it flare. So I took the 90-degree fittings off of the C5, put them on here, and they worked out real nice, and again, it's flared here. The only thing I don't have is some transmission cooler line hose. I can pick some of that up at the auto parts store. I'll look it up online. Maybe I can use fuel hose. It's 5/16. Not sure how compatible the two are. You would think if it can withstand gasoline, it could withstand transmission fluid. I was also pleasantly surprised to find out that the size and the splines on this output shaft are the same as the C5. So if I can't find a drive shaft the correct length, I can always have this one lengthened 1 inch and use the existing yoke that came with the C5. There it is. She's stuffed up in there. What kind of uneventful. My dipstick tube had a little interference. I had to tweak the end of it. What I'll do is I'll search for a dipstick tube that's for a Ford truck, because the Ford truck came with the 351 and this is hitting the cylinder head. This was made for a 302. I got to get some hose to connect my lines, and then I got to get a drive shaft, put a new seal in it, and then I got to get this cross member modified. So I just got a ratchet strap holding it in place for the time being. So all those things will have to take place later. It's Sunday, everybody's closed. I'll head out tomorrow and go to the fabrication shop and to the auto parts store and to the junkyard, see if they've got a drive shaft. Who knows? We might even get this thing on the road in the next couple of days or years or centuries. So I needed to make an adapter. I got this plug from the junkyard, but I wanted to plug into the existing harness on the car. Now, I didn't want to cut up the neutral safety switch that was off the C5 because, well, it's brand new. It was one of the bad parts that was on that car when I got it. It's not brand new, it's a year old, but whatever. I didn't want to cut it up. Turns out this plug that I needed is the same plug that's used on the Duraspark. And I had an old Duraspark module laying around. It'll probably never get used again, so I snipped it off and spliced it onto the harness I got at the wrecking yard. And so this should work. I'm going to plug it in, and I don't even have to have the car running to prove it out. I just go through the different gear settings, make sure I have backup lights, and that I can start it when it's in neutral or park. So that's a pretty simple fix, and hopefully this works properly and I didn't confuse myself when I was figuring out which wire went where. Thank God for schematics. I gotta figure out what to do with the dead horse. Anybody want a C5? I'll sell it to you really cheap. I mean, really cheap. If you've got $1.49, you can have this thing. So I dropped the cross member off at the Fab Shop. Friday's Racing. You've seen them in some of my previous videos. It'll be ready for me tomorrow. And now I'm going to head on down to Dan's Auto Salvage, which I've also featured in other videos, to see if they might just happen to have a drive shaft. He says he's got 1,000 to choose from. That sounds like it'll be fun. Sure. There's one right there. No. Well, you know, you can't say I don't have something to choose from. I mean, there's quite quite a few I can look at. And then, of course, once I find one, the question will then be, are they rusted solid? Do those U-joints still move? Because I may end up having to put U-joints in. Oh boy. It's going to take some time. This looks like it might work. I'll be damned. But same input shaft. I counted the splines. I compared the flanges at the back. They're the same. And it's an inch and a half longer. That's damn near perfect. What are the odds? And I've only been here 5 minutes. Boy, the Ford gods are shining down on me. Still really surprised I found one so quickly. But it's been sitting in the elements. It's kind of rusty and crusty, so all these surfaces have to be cleaned up. The U-joints actually feel good, despite being out in the weather, so I guess the seals did their job. Anyway, there's no Zerk on these, so I can't add grease. I'll just run it, and if the U-joints fail, I'll surely know, won't I? So let's get this cleaned up and installed. Well, I cleaned it up as best I could. Put a little NSCs on the splines, put a little WD on the outside. Let's just see if it'll do anything. I may have to take the yoke off the old drive shaft and graft it to this drive shaft because it's not wanting to go. Splines are too messed up or something. Yeah, I'm gonna have to swap the yokes because trying to tap it in with my favorite tool, the brass hammer, that just knocked this dampener ring right off of here. So we need to do it anyway, and then I can pick and choose which U-joint I like best, and we'll use whatever parts we need to make this function. The good news about all this is I get plenty of use out of my favorite tool, the brass hammer. Go, baby. Oh, yeah. Alright, got the yoke transferred after, losing some needle bearings, and it was a fight. Like pretty much everything I do at my age. My back hurts like hell. That's alright, I'm used to it now. No, never get used to it. Alright, that goes in. That's nice. Now, let's see how this little guy goes together. Ouch. That looks pretty good. Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and fill it up with fluid. I'm going to start it up and we'll see if it goes in gear. I don't have the shift linkage ready yet, obviously, but we can manually reach underneath the car, drop it in gear, and just make sure it goes into reverse and forward. I'll feel a lot better about my purchase if I think it actually goes into gear. Now that shift lever part that I ordered, you actually have to drop the pan to install it. You got to disconnect it from the linkage inside the valve body. And so I bought a filter kit. I figured when I drop the pan, I'll go ahead and replace that shifter arm with the one that's adjustable. And I can put a filter in it. So any fluid I'm putting in it now, it's going to waste. But the way I look at it, this transmission sat around, looks like it was pretty dirty in a junkyard or something. This will flush any debris down into the Earl pan, and then when I do that service, after I get that part, it'll get a lot of crud out. So it's worth it to me to spend 30 bucks on a jug of tranny fluid just to make sure I flushed all the dirt out of this transmission. There we go. What? All right, only one more thing to wait for. One more thing. Yeah, I think just the one thing. That shift arm, and then I can play with the linkage, get it working, play with my shift control cable, get it dialed in, and well, heck, we might even have a functioning car. Something's gonna go wrong. A bad feeling. yes, the kit finally arrived. So this is the shift shaft universal doohickey. This goes in where the existing one goes, and you can rotate it any way you want because it's got a bunch of holes in it. And you can put this lever on it, and you can get whatever angle you need so that your shift rod and your shift linkage moves at the correct distance. And you can adjust the amount of throw. So this is great. I can make sure that the column shifter works with this transmission. So let's get this thing, drop the pan, let's get this thing put in. So I've just kind of put the throttle TV lever in place. This lever's a little shorter than the original one, but basically I've got to flip them around. I may have to relocate this on the bottom. So I'm going to worry about the shift linkage first. So even if I put the shift linkage up on the top, then my rod will go from here to there. Kind of the main thing is it can't go this way. It needs to go back, not forward. And by going the opposite direction, it will do that for me. This kit, when I ordered this kit, I ordered the cheapest one on eBay, like I always do. And when the kit arrived, well, it was the wrong one. So I had to send it back, and eBay is really good about letting you return things. The problem is I would have to wait for it to return to the original seller, wait for him to realize he made a mistake, and then send me another one. So while I was returning it, I also ordered one from the second cheapest one on eBay. And this one's the right one. So let that be a warning to you when you're ordering one of these kits. Always order the second cheapest one, not the cheapest one. Now, whenever doing any type of work inside the transmission, when you drop the pan, make sure you do it on a breezy day, or a windy day, even better, so that the fluid can get all over you. The goal here is to make as much a mess as possible. I am assisted by my incredibly cheap cobbled together drain device, so that way the thing's at an angle and it will splash more fluid on me than if I used a real tool. This is just, how I roll. We want to be self-lubricating while we're doing these jobs. Oh my goodness. It's nice clean fluid coming out. Gee, I wonder why. I just put the fluid in this thing. But, again, if there's any crud or debris, it's gotten flushed out. So we'll get that shift shaft replaced and put a new filter in it, and hopefully we'll be drivable. Won't that be something? So this pin right here holds the shaft in, and then I've got a nut on the back side that holds this detent arm to the shift shaft. So we'll get those out. We'll pull the shaft out, put our new shaft in. The new shaft comes with a little seal for our throttle valve shaft, so that can be sealed between the two shafts. And we'll get that swapped out and put it all back together. struggling with this thing, and here's the situation. This is the new little shifty shaft drum thing, and it looks like the other one where it connects to the detent lever, but it doesn't fit. So I've been grinding on it. I've got to hone this down just a little bit to make it fit into this opening here. It's a very precise fit. You know, these second cheapest on eBay parts, you know, they usually take a little assistance to make them fit. We've got the components in. The only thing I'm not real happy with is this thing had more play in it than the stock one, and there's a little bit of play. It doesn't disengage the valve, so I mean, it's still going to do its job, but if I go down the road one day and all of a sudden I can't get it in or out of a gear, I'll know where the failure was. Maybe I should have used the other original one and just simply faced it up, but my main concern is the throw is going to be different, and that's where this has an advantage. So we'll try it. If it fails, well, I get to do it again. Okay, I've got my linkages all in place. Now, this is the original thread of the rod that came with the kit. It was way, way, way too long, so I had to cut some off. So what I did is I made sure to put the transmission lever in the low position, which is way over here, while leaving this shifter, which is attached to the column, in the park position. That way I could completely mismeasure it and cut it too short. Worked out perfect. Guaranteed me a trip to the hardware store to buy some all thread, which I then had to re-tap or re-dye for metric threads. Perfect. Hardware store loves me. I knew things were going too smoothly. Turns out if I put the exhaust back where it belongs, it interferes directly with my TV cable. It can't, it's buried against it. It's always something. So I'll probably have to go back to the exhaust shop and have a new Y pipe made that, you know, scooches it over along here a little bit more. It's also really, really close to the cooler lines, but that's not as much of an issue. Those can be kind of moved around a little. It's that TV cable issue. Well, the only thing remaining is to take her for a spin. I've adjusted that TV cable as best as I can figure out by looking at articles on the interwebs. So we'll just take it out for a spin, see how she drives, and make more adjustments as needed. Well, goes into reverse. That's something. Well, it won't upshift. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Not quite the results I had hoped for, but this is what happens when you buy used, unaccounted for parts. I mean, there's no way to tell whether that training is good or not. Actually, I feel pretty good about it because when I pulled the pan down for the very first time, there was virtually no clutch material and absolutely no metal in it. So whatever the problem is, I don't think it's any kind of hard parts. It's probably just a valve stuck in the valve body, which should be not too hard to resolve. So that's what I'm hoping for anyway. And plus I've got to get that exhaust redone so that I can, have mufflers and stuff. But anyway, come on back for the next episode. It may be a while before I can get these things ironed out. And maybe we can finally take this for an actual drive instead of just around the block. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to tell your friends so they can also be depressed by failures. Thanks for watching. Something's going to go wrong. A bad feeling.